I love the idea, though, of the people at Swatch HQ in kind of pagan robes or whatever, and somebody's on a telescope looking up, waiting for the moon to reach its fullest amount for the night. They're like, let it begin. And then they start all the machines up. Cloud goes over the moon and they have to stop for a little while. Cloud goes back over and they commence again. Like, I love that idea. I wish it was like that, but sadly, it's not.
I hope it's like the machine is in a dungeon and there's like rivers of moonshine gold flowing in between the machines. Well, that's where your $300 watch was made.
If they had evidence of that, I'd buy it in the blink of an eye, honestly.
Greetings and welcome to this week's aBlogtoWatch Weekly. We have no Ariel, for he is recovering from jet lag under the good auspices of LVMH Group in France, waiting to do his thing. Either that or he is continuing to riot on the streets. We're not sure. I'm not sure how political Ariel is. I think he probably is more on the eating cake side than on the storming the Bastille, but that's just my judgment. So we found a replacement. We had to search. We're thinking we need someone who's free, who's available, who's got nothing else to do at this time in the morning when we record. So there was only one person to go to, and that is the world's greatest unemployed watchmaker for Daniel Wellington. P.S. If you're, open parenthesis, if you're looking to get your batteries changed, then there is a man available, and that is the watch regulator, Alex. How are you, Alex? I haven't upset you, have I? You're not crying?
No, definitely not. We're Scottish. It's very difficult to upset Scottish people. But surely I have to call myself an ex-Daniel Wellington employee now, right?
An ex-Daniel Wellington. You formerly have done an ex-parrot. Some sort of Monty Python sketch. Good stuff. Well, we're obviously also joined by David, who in the past week has been inundated with memberships of clock societies worldwide, as he is well known now as standing up for all things clock. So, David, any clock societies you're particularly looking forward to going to the meetings of?
Any clocks? Not yet. Hopefully we'll make it to Hong Kong, watch a clock fair, and I might see some clocks there. But, other than that, nothing.
Great stuff. Well, fully packed show, and just for Alex, we've made it Swatch Group heavy. So there we go.
Thank you so much.
So he's delighted at that. If you don't really understand what we're talking about or hinting at, then Alex, where on TikTok? Let's get it out there. First of all, where on TikTok should people go to see the full story?
Just go to the watch regulator on everything. It's on Instagram as well, but it's just basically my story of being fired by Swatch Group as their greatest ever artisan watch technician for bad-mouthing the brand on social media, which I've been doing for so many years now. Like, they took their time, but they got there in the end. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a new phenomenon. Let's be clear. But we'll see whether that phenomenon maybe you'll turn a new leaf. Now, maybe everything we talk about today with Swatch Group and Omega, you'll just be in love with. Maybe it's like been a barrier. It's been one of these love relationships whereby being so close has just kept you so far away. It'll be a story of great reversal and love for all things Swatch Group. Anyway, we shall see about that. But first up, we're not going to so much talk about watches as watch websites. This is David's fabulous grinding gears. Something I think quite a lot of people are like, yeah, you're dead right. Watches are stupendously difficult to appreciate and find on official brand websites.
They are.
There are few truer statements than just how poor some brand websites are. David, tell us why this is at the front of your agenda for your grinding gears article.
Well, I mean, it was long overdue that someone said it, and based on the comments, at least that's the impression that I'm getting. It's just the way it is. I mean, I will give you a perfect example. Yesterday, the day before our recording, Swatch launched the, speaking of Swatch, there you go. It took us like 45 seconds.
Starting early.
Yes. It launched a new MoonSwatch, Moonshine Gold edition, Strawberry Moon of June. This is a watch name that has the word moon in it 3 times. And they launched it on their Instagram, but nowhere else. The watch was nowhere to be found on Swatch.com, not on the Swatch press site, not on the Swatch Group press site, because, at this point we have to cunningly find our ways, through these websites and all the rest of it to find information, to find specs, to find images and all the rest. So, even to this day, I mean, a whole day later, the watch is still not presented on the Swatch homepage. So they just launched their most important thing for the last number of months, and it's still not there. It's something else, and even that something else, whatever it is, on Swatch.com, it says coming soon. So how does this even work, and all the rest of it? And so it's, it was, I would say it was fun to write, but it was not fun to find images for, because I was like, where do I even begin? But in the end, I'm quite happy with the illustrations, to be honest.
So, worst website you came across in the article writing process?
I think all of them are bad that you find illustrations for in the article. I would say that probably it's so difficult to single one out. I think Casio is ridiculous for having innumerable different websites and microsites for the same watch and the same brands. I couldn't tell you how many dozens of different websites they have for G-Shock and Casio and such. And sometimes you find what you're looking for, sometimes it's not there, sometimes it has a price, sometimes it only has one image, sometimes it has 8. So it's a little bit all over the place. Ulysse Nardin, I love that brand, I love the watches, I love the passion of that brand, but their website is just I took a screenshot. They say 6 things about a watch in their technical specifications, and then that's it. So mechanism, self-winding. Caliber, UN, whatever. Case, steel, stainless steel. Dimensions, diameter 44 millimeters. Strap, leather, glass, sapphire. Boom. That's all you need to know about a $12,000 watch as far as Ulysse Nardin is concerned. Which is quite ridiculous, isn't it? It has a leather strap, you can tell that from the picture. It has a sapphire crystal, you would hope so because it costs $12,000. It's stainless steel, fair enough, okay. Diameter 44, I mean, is the watch perfectly flat? I'm sure it has a thickness, I'm pretty sure it has a lug-to-lug dimension, and stuff like that. And it has a self-winding mechanism, no specifications in terms of functions or features or accuracy or operating frequency or anything like that. It's that was a tough one.
Any experience in watch websites, Alex, that has upset or concerned you?
Well, it's funny that I was drafted in at the last minute as a celebrity watchmaker.
Yep.
Well, I actually had this experience just before you emailed me when I was trying to find the price of a Rolex Submariner, and it was on a AD's website here in Australia called Kennedy's. I don't know if they're elsewhere, but it took me, so I Googled it, came up Rolex Submariner Kennedy's, went to there to find out the Australian price. And then I had to go through 6 pages of two-tone Datejust and Lady Datejust before I actually got to the page with the date Rolex Submariner on it. And I was like, how is this? Surely most people would just give up at some point. They would get to page 6.
I just think it's weird. I just want to show me all the watches function. I just want to doom scroll all the things I can't afford through a website, not be overly sold to. It's more like watching... those flip books where you'd put all the images together in the corner of a notepad and you'd flick them in order to turn still images into like a video, really basic, like moving pictures. It kind of feels like that it's almost like they just want to show us really nice photos and our scrolling or page turning in order to find the thing we're actually looking for turns the website almost into a video, into some sort of artistic creation. It's really weird, really odd, just how difficult it is to actually look at watches on a website. Now, one of the only websites I will say maybe comes the closest to doing it right is actually Tudor. And I don't know if it's related sort of to the fact that Tudor also appear to right now be the only brand where the watches are in high demand that can launch a watch and have it available the same day in the shops, unlike, shall we say, Omega, who I don't know when these new ones that they've released this week we'll talk about later in the show are actually available, but normally Omega will tell you about something today and it'll be available maybe for 6 months or might not come out at all for a good long while. So Tudor might be the only one that I've looked at recently that I thought that's actually both a pretty website, but also allows you to get to the watches you may be interested in quite quickly. Still doesn't have a just show me a list of all the watches that I can scroll down. David, we've looked at the worst. Any good examples of watch websites?
So good examples. Well, I still have a bit of renting to do before we get to that. It's I think one of the important things of these websites is that like you say, you want to go there, you want to doom scroll, you want to find something, a price, a specific watch, or whatever else. And a lot of these websites, including Tag Heuer, Rolex, and countless others. If you go there and you select size, and I want a 42 or a 43 millimeter watch, they will say small, medium, or large. You cannot search by millimeter, and they have hundreds of watches. So how dumb do these brands think their customers are that they cannot be trusted by millimeters? Oh, you don't even know what you want. You couldn't possibly know what 42 millimeters is. We'll just allow you to choose large. And let's say you want a specific size, but no, you have. So some of these filters don't work, so maybe you want a 36, but there's a 37, and then a 38, and then a 39, and a 35, or whatever, and then you end up having to scroll through hundreds of SKUs of watches and sizes you don't want, and you're not interested in, just because these brands don't think you understand, not me or you, but, the average customer, what a millimeter is and how many millimeters they want in their watch. By contrast, Bucherer allows a fantastically convoluted breakdown of sizes, where it can be 40 by 20, 40 by 24, 40 by 24.4, 40 by 37, 40.1 by 20, 40.1 by 24.4, which is basically the same as the 40 probably. But it's still a little bit that's maybe too far to the other end of the spectrum, but I respect it nevertheless. So these websites function really poorly at featuring and presenting these watches, whether it comes to the specifications of the exact watch that you're looking for, or if it comes to somebody looking to find a watch, something that they might like in a specific size. Show me all the references or all the dial options and whatever else in this size. That's what I want. And most of these just make it a frustrating experience. And it's been going on for many, many years, and I see very little improvement. So I thought, why not just write 2,500 words or however many there are here and point these out in the hopes that, watch websites, official ones, would be more fun to browse in the near future.
The other thing you looked at, which is quite interesting, I guess I hadn't really noticed it, but spot on. It's just how bad watch websites are at their history. Mm-hmm. You're looking for something that they used to have, and it's just not there. It just doesn't exist on the website. They've just disposed of it.
Yes.
Why do you think that is? Why are Rolex, and Rolex is the one you use, not listing, the ability to see watches that they used to have and just tell you that this is an old watch or it's in the history section? Because it clearly takes work to remove stuff as much as it takes work to actually put the things on the website in the first place.
Yes.
You'd think a bit of better organization would allow them to keep the history. And okay, maybe we shouldn't be complaining because it means people come to watch websites and podcasts to learn about this stuff. But you think the brands are missing out on not actually having the ability to search for previous models on their own sites.
Yes. I mean, the featured image for this article was taken from the Rolex website, where I searched for 116500, which is the outgoing Daytona that they discontinued a couple of months ago. And it's no results found. Please enter another search term. That's what comes back. So you cannot compare the new one to the old one. If you have an old one, and we are talking about a couple of months old watch, potentially, you cannot find any sort of information, not how much it used to cost, not the specifications of the case, or the bracelet, or the movement, or the dials, or the dial options. And it makes it really easy for dubious sellers and Franken watch producers to create watches that are basically almost impossible to cross-reference against a manufacturer's website. And of course, I'm not just simply talking about the Daytona, but many of the other watches, like this dial, and let's say, for example, that they just has had several dozens of different dials over the course of its last couple of years only. So imagine that, did this dial ever come in this combination of metals or never? Is this a Franken watch? How do I find it out? It's very, very difficult to do that these days, and I feel like this is obviously done to keep the focus at the newest watches that people can supposedly buy, or are actually just driving the revenue for these brands. But again, we are either looking at 100-year-old heritage pieces and boring history from ages that nobody really cares about and is completely irrelevant, or are looking at the latest watches and nothing in between. And there are hundreds of thousands and actually millions of people out there with a Rolex watch from the last number of years that they can never ever again find on the Rolex website and find any sort of actual factual information on the watch.
Alex, how much has this continued inside the brands? I assume brands like Swatch, etc., have internal intranets where you go to for all the information. To what extent do the brands themselves use this form of communication to, like, for example, tell watchmakers how to do a repair or whatever? Is it just as badly organised?
That's a hilarious part about the intranet stuff you're talking about, where if you're trying to find a vintage reference, which a lot of the time isn't even on there, but if you do find it, there's like no photographs, there's no nothing, there's maybe a reference for a case tube or something, but it's, yeah. I guess with so many, think about how many more models come out all the time for all the big brands, though, different colors, different bracelets, different bezels, like it must be a lot for them to keep up. And I think maybe we're being a bit, not mean, not that I'm defending the Swiss watch industry by any means, but think about brands like Patek. They only got on Instagram like a couple of years ago. Like, the Swiss watch industry isn't known exactly for being forward when it comes to this kind of stuff. So just give them another 20 years and then they'll have their MySpace up and running, I'm sure.
They'll be sorted. Well, is there not, there's a new Instagram thing. I think it's possibly out today. Is it Threads? So we'll see how long it takes the Swiss watch brands to get onto Threads, which sounds like some sort of yuppie website circa 1980s. If social media had existed in London back in those days. Before we talk about some watches, we've got some news. So Ariel's not here, so it's my turn to go. So I was right. For those of you that have been listening to the Argon versus Aragon Space View Stushy, then yes, it does appear that it was nothing to do with De Bethune. It is to do with a name similarity claim. But the guys at Guillaume, Nevada Grange and Vulcane, and Argon, I think they have basically renamed the item. It's been removed now from Kickstarter, but I think, as Ariel had said a couple of weeks ago, the reason it was in Kickstarter was not so much because they needed the money to launch it, it was more because they wanted to use it as a marketing platform. So, to be fair, it's worked either way. So, while I imagine now it needs to be slightly more self-funded to produce the models, they have certainly got a shed load of publicity through the thing, both being sold to those who found it on that platform and everybody who's covered it now that it's been removed from that platform. So I'm quite sure that overall Guillaume is probably quite happy with the result. Alex, have you seen this watch?
I have. There was a lot of kind of buzz around it, positive. So people seemed a bit kind of disappointed when all this stuff kind of kicked off. Not really to my taste, but yeah, I did hear and see about it, and there was a lot of buzz and support from the watch community.
Yeah, so as it just so happens, in a fluke of timing, or indeed a masterstroke, Guillaume is actually being interviewed by Ariel this week on Superlative. So if you want to hear more from him, go and check out Superlative. Now it's time for some watches. Let's start in the mood and the tone with which I suspect we will continue, and let's look at a little watch that's already been trailed a little bit this week. The Swatch MoonSwatch Moonshine Gold Strawberry Moon of June watch. So watch, Swatch watch, June watch. Do we need to point out to people that this is a watch, David?
I don't think we do, but we have to say that it is also an Omega, but I couldn't be bothered to put that into the title because it just gets so freaking confusing at this point. It's like, let's just call it a Swatch, even though it says Omega on it a number of times. Oh, well.
I mean, why? This feels like Richard at
Underdog.
This feels like it should say Omega times Swatch times Studio Underdog on the dial. Are they just? Has somebody just lost the plot over at Swatch / Omega?
They're really doubling down on the Moonshine Gold thing, which got such bad feedback when they first did it. And it is a kind of like the hold my drink and we'll show you how bad it can get. Now, I know David's a nice boy, but Richard, you'll probably be able to see this a bit more. Do you think the chronograph hand looks like a strip of acid?
The chronograph hand looks like a strip. I do not know to what you refer.
It looks like a drug thing to me.
Right, okay. I have a vague understanding of what you're talking about. So yes, there is some similarity there. David, are you about to say how you're completely au fait with this reference?
I'm pretty sure it was not inspired by acid. Let's just put it that way. I think it's just it might resemble it, but I'm pretty sure that no one in Beale was like, let's take the seconds that look like that. It's an old one. Why does it have strawberries on it? It has strawberries on it because there's a thing called Strawberry Moon of June, and it occurred on the 3rd of June, and they launched this watch on the 3rd of July, a month later. And when I was looking at that, I was like, oh. It's basically called, it's a watch that pays tribute to something that occurred a month before its launch, which is just so weird. But then, finally I managed to find some more images, and there's this little certificate that comes with the watch, and it says a full moon production certificate. And this is where weird gets weirder. The certificate that comes with the watch says the Omega is in all caps, the Omega Moonshine Gold seconds hand of this bioceramic MoonSwatch mission to the moon was produced during the Strawberry Moon of June 2023. And this aligns with the previous Moonshine Gold edition MoonSwatch, where the certificate said that the seconds hand, the chronograph seconds hand, was produced during the full moon in February or March or whatever. And so this is so weird because either this is not true and they keep making these hands, or if it is true, it's such an arbitrary sample limitation in terms of production that it's crazy. I'm not sure how many of these hands they can stamp out over the course of a night. But when people have been mad for over a year and a half, just how difficult to source any of these MoonSwatches have been for so many people around the world who wanted one. To create a limited edition that they say is not limited, they literally say it's not limited, and yet they also certify the fact that they only made it for a single night, is so backwards in so many ways and so anti-consumer that it just boggles the mind. And it's not something that, in my mind, fits Swatch very well. It might fit Harry Winston or Jacques Droz or something like that. But why would Swatch need to fire up a machine to work for 8 hours or maybe 10? And then, pull it out of the wall and then just say, okay, that's it. We made, I don't know how many hands, Swatch can stamp out. Maybe they can stamp out 100,000, but I doubt it. And even if it did, there's no explanation coming from the brand whatsoever. It's just, we made this for a night. Do you like it? And I'm like, no, I don't like the way that it looks. I don't like the entire concept. And it's just overall something that is not very consumer oriented. It's just like, we're not really sure about this, but so we make it limited. And this is something that brands do all the time. If you look at one of their, some of their more risque designs, and, behind the scenes, whenever we chat with CEOs or, leaders of these companies, managers of these companies, they, sometimes they admit to making stuff limited just because they're not really sure and they want to make it more appealing. And, since they are not very sure, they don't really want to stockpile a huge quantity of these watches and then have them sit around for a long time. Although again, to be fair. This watch, you take off the second hand and it's just a mission to the moon. Nothing else is changed. You just put it in a different box, or maybe the box is even the same. You just put in a different certificate, put it in a different hand, and you still have a mission to the moon, and you can sell as many of these as you want. So it's just such a weird release on so many fronts. But if you like strawberries on top of gold, which is a weird taste, a developed one for sure, then this is the watch for you at $300.
I love the idea, though, of the people at Swatch HQ in kind of pagan robes or whatever. Ray Ray's there, Papa Hayek, and somebody's on a telescope looking up, waiting for the moon to reach its fullest amount for the night. They're like, let it begin. And then they start all the machines up. And then immediately once a cloud, a cloud goes over the moon and they have to stop for a little while. Cloud goes back over and they commence again. And there's some kind of animal sacrifice at the end. Like, I love that idea. I wish it was like that, but sadly, it's not.
Yeah, yes. Kind of some sort of Indiana Jones pastiche at the end of Temple
Let
of
it
Doom.
begin.
Somebody's reaching in and wrenching a live beating heart out of the chest of a watchmaker. Maybe
they're all feeding each other strawberries. Yeah.
Maybe you got out early, Alex, and it saved you from being immolated.
I
missed the strawberry orgy. Yeah.
I hope it's like the machine is in a dungeon and there's like rivers of moonshine gold flowing in between the machines.
Oh, yeah.
It's like something from Willy Wonka's chocolate factory.
Well, that's where your $300 watch was made. In a dungeon next to rivers
I would
of
buy
moonshine
one.
Gold. Yeah, now you're interested.
If they had evidence of that, I'd buy it in the blink of an eye, honestly.
What I find really weird about this is that every moon, as far as I'm aware, has a name to it.
Yes.
So, for example, the one that's just happened is the Buck Moon.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know whether like the one that they're going to produce in 30 days time is going to have like pictures of little bottoms on it or something. It's like, here's our Buck Moon. But February's a snow moon. March is the worm moon. So it's almost like, and there are some good ones. So like April's the pink moon. So they could have produced a pink gold.
That would be fun.
It's like they're finding out about this stuff as they go along. It's like, right, okay, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna make it the night of a full moon, and then like 3 or 4 months later, somebody goes, "You realise that these moons have got names? We could do a strawberry moon." The one I'm particularly keen on is there's one later in the year, in August, called the Sturgeon Moon. So I'm wondering for all the Scottish people whether we're gonna have little Nicholas on the on the
behind bars.
Little camper van. This is a really Scottish joke, but little camper vans on
Nobody
the
knows what we're talking about now.
Nobody's got a clue. There you go. There's a bit of Scottish politics for you on aBlogtoWatch Weekly.
And they would sell 5 of them.
But I mean, you've got it's really weird. Anyway, it's go check out if you're into MoonSwatch. Maybe you can pop across one of these. I haven't actually been brave enough to check the comment section of aBlogtoWatch for this, but I can imagine what it's like. But we'll leave that there.
It's not kind. Let's put it that way.
Hi, I'm Ariel Adams, founder of aBlogtoWatch, with a message from eBay, a platform I probably use daily. Make sure your watches are the real deal with eBay Authenticity Guarantee. I believe it's the first and best service of its kind that protects your luxury purchases and checks each watch individually at eBay's highly reputable authentication partner, Stolen Company, in the United States. From band to bezel, their authenticators ensure each wristwatch matches the eBay listing and is the real deal. Authenticity Guarantee is also very fast. Once authentication is complete, your watch is securely delivered via rapid 2-day shipping. Surprisingly, eBay's Authenticity Guarantee service is free for all watches priced $2,000 and up. No one should buy a luxury item without an Authenticity Guarantee. Do what I do and check eBay before each watch purchase, because everyone deserves real.
Right, next up, let's take it away from Swatch Group before we return to them. Let's look at Tudor Pelagos. David, you got to review this on the launch day. Tudor Pelagos FXD.
Yes.
Is it just me, or was this? I thought this was quite a quiet launch, considering it's a Pelagos chronograph we've got, and that's quite a big thing.
Yes.
It feels like this is a really big story that they've launched. Is it a limited edition?
No, it's not. It's going to be limited in production for sure. So it's not like they will, be stamping these out until eternity. But for sure, it's going to be available.
Mm-hmm. I just felt a bit of an odd release. Here's this big story. We've done something new with the Pelagos, but it's all wrapped up in the whole Red Bull Alinghi racing thing.
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to just being, here's something new from Tudor, and then, by the way, here's a special edition. Because I can imagine some folk being put off by the whole sponsorship thing. Some people don't like their watches that mention any co-branding. I would be one of them, although I think this is actually subtle enough and relational enough. Like, it is, you can understand the sponsorship, unlike the previous Alinghi chronograph, which, if I remember correctly, was a Speedmaster with great 50 metre worth of water resistance for a yacht racing chronograph. So this is a slight improvement, at least on that. Thoughts on the watch in general, though, David?
Yeah, I like, on a personal note, I love it, a dive watch that's a chronograph as well. I think it's just such a good look. This one is interesting, but it's well balanced. I mean, there's a lot going on with all these markers on the dive bezel, and it's blue and it's red, and it has these big hour markers. I think it's a strong 8 out of 10 in terms of design. I really miss the 3, 6, and 9 o'clock hour markers. The rest of them are these big block superluminova indices that are carved out of these monoblock pieces of loom. They look great, but then you look at the rest of the watch and you feel like, but something is missing. So how can you not have at least like a little rectangle or something like that at these various locations, because these are kind of important. So that is the only thing that looks off to me. I like that the subdials at 3 and 9 are large. And of course, they have not left too much room for these big block square hour markers that we see elsewhere on the watch. But still, I think it's cool. It's actually the case material that is very interesting because it's a first for Tudor, and it's in matte black carbon composite for the case and the bezel insert. The bezel itself, as well as the pushers and the case back, are in titanium. I take that back because the case back is actually in stainless steel. So it's a mix of materials. It's carbon, it's titanium, and it's stainless steel. And I like that. I like it when a lot of engineering goes into a watch and they make sure that these different materials work together well. There are a lot of factors that you have to take into consideration. And I think what is important to know, and I say this in the article too, is that Tudor still offers the cheapest way to have a B01 in your watch. I just went on the Breitling website, and I believe that the cheapest B01 Breitling is $8,000, and that's the top time. Speaking of bad watch websites, I typed in at Breitling.com B01, and it found me exactly 0 watches. 0 for B01, their flagship movement. And if you look at all watches, it brings out 300 watches, literally 300 of them, and you can filter for all kinds of different things, but not the movement, not even the functionality. You cannot filter for chronographs at Breitling.com. Okay, rant over. And it looks like it's $8,000, just for the record. And for the chronograph from Tudor, it's $5,075. So it's basically $3,000 less for one of the best chronograph movements out there.
Well, we know that at least one very senior person in Breitling listens to this show, so maybe Sylvana will go and do something about that for us.
Maybe.
Quick question, is the chronograph bigger than the three-hander? It looks like a larger watch.
I don't think it is, no.
And what size is that, 42, 43? Or are they dinky? In fact, I should go to the Tudor website, seeing as I said it was such a good website, and see what it says. So let's try this out. How easy is it to find out the dimensions of this watch? So actually, the chronograph is a 43mm. That didn't take long to do. And the three-hander is
a 42.
Is 42.
Yes.
So 42. So decent sizes. I do like that chronograph. The more that I'm looking at it, the more I actually quite like it. And as you say, the price is decent for what it is.
Yes.
I mean, goodness sake, I'm sitting here thinking that $4,000's decent to spend on any watch, but it is unfortunately the reality of it. Alex, Tudor thoughts?
I just want to say, first of all, hi to Sylvan. Big fan of you on the show. Big fan of the brand. Any jobs going, mate? Just let me know. Reach out. This is a great looking.
I think there is. If Breitling ever wanted to launch their own podcast, Sylvan, listen. Then I think you and Alex doing the Breitling dedicated podcast would be a work of art to behold.
And I have said to you before, Richard, before I was fired for very good reason, I have said that I'd actually like him for someone who speaks for the brand and also for watch enthusiasts. So that I'll stop licking now.
I can confirm to you, Sylvan, that Alex was sucking up to you long before he actually needed to suck up to you for a job. So there we go. But I think that'd be a great show. That'd be a great show. So anyway, go on.
This is a great looking watch, no doubt about it. I guess the case material, which I have concerns about, just from mainly doing my own hit podcast, Robin Regulator, with my friend, retired AP watchmaker Rob, where he talks about carbon fiber cases and them kind of deteriorating over time. And I remember the last one that we covered was a Bamford carbon fiber watch. And even from the press release photographs, it looked like it needed Head and Shoulders anti-dandruff shampoo because it was already kind of falling apart in the photograph. So I'm just, from my communication with other watchmakers, I'm not entirely convinced of carbon fiber for an everyday watch, but still this watch is a gorgeous watch. And I know Alinghi before, were they with AP as well before they were with Omega? They really do the rounds when it comes to sponsorship deals.
I think they've done a few. I don't really understand why everybody cares. Like, obviously the yacht racing set, of which I am not one, clearly think that this is a great brand, Alinghi, but to be honest, I don't know a great deal about them. But yes, they have certainly shopped around for their watch brands in the past. As I say, I think the last one I recall was Omega, was a Speedmaster sailing watch, which is just about as clever as a strawberry-based MoonSwatch, to be honest. David, any final thoughts on this before we move on? Is this it was an 8 out of 10? Is it a sign of things to come? Do we think there'll be is the next move clearly a non-Alinghi racing Tudor chronograph, and how long do we need to wait for that?
For sure it's going to come. I don't think it would take longer than before the end of the year for a new model to come out. At the latest, Watches and Wonders next year, at the very latest. I think, what's weird is that the Tudor Pelagos FXD, they launched it in 2021 for the Marina Sionel. They also had this fixed bar lock design, which means that you cannot fit a regular strap on a spring bar, but instead you have to have these fabric straps that you have to loop through the case, and it's just annoying because this watch would look so great on so many different straps, but it's literally impossible to fit any of them. So if you get one of these, just keep in mind that it's going to be maybe some Zulu or NATO straps, and definitely NATO straps, and the factory supplied, which are quite cool actually. These woven jacquard woven straps that you can fit, but nothing else. I think this would be bonkers cool on a carbon bracelet or something like that. I'm not sure if Tudor can do that, but if they can, that would be amazing.
Okay, drum roll. Omega launches 11 new Seamaster summer blue watches. We kind of trailed it last week. David, you were sitting eagerly by your computer waiting for these to drop.
Yes.
You had got the time wrong, so you were waiting for substantially longer than you expected. Good to see a watch journalist also duffing up the time telling, the basics of, watches. But when they released, were you overall impressed? last week you said I think you said it was like an 80% chance of this being a sigh of a release, whatever came. So did it meet expectation or did it exceed expectation?
Well, I think it's such a huge release in the sense that it's 11 or 12 references across, seven different collections, which is a lot. I think, Omega's put a lot of effort into this in the sense that it's a lot of different watches all to come out for the 75th anniversary. It's good to see that all of them have received this summer blue treatment, but on the flip side, many people have complained, and I tend to agree with them, that many of these watches are these sub collections in the Seamaster range, would have benefited from some technical updates. A lot of them are still very thick, so they are not too comfortable to wear. And, what better if not, what more of a reason than a 75th anniversary would Omega need to refresh some of these? I think that's a very fair assessment. And when looking at these, when I was writing the article, I was already thinking to myself that it's cool to have new colors, but, new colors we are used to seeing for every summer, basically. It's not for a big anniversary. A cool little trait is that we go from the Aquaterra that is water resistant to 150 meters to the 6,000 meter, or whatever it's called, ultra deep. And as we go across this range, the dials in blue get darker. So the higher the water resistance, the darker the dial. Which is, again, I think that's a cool little trait. You have to have all the watches next to each other to be able to fully appreciate this. But it's a thoughtful little detail that I can appreciate.
Alex, it's the opinion everyone's wanting to hear. That's what they tuned in for.
Surely the legibility should get better the deeper you go, and the dials get so dark. I do think that's a nice touch, to be honest. I also like the thing where it's got the Omega was here at the darkest. On the darkest dial of the ultra deep. I think that's nice. I'm not sure how it's activated, but they could also have a made in China thing that pops up as well at the same time. That'd be good.
I understand the kind of let's make them light to dark depending on how deep it is. I get that, but that only works if you see all 11 of them together.
But at a glance, though, when you see someone on the street, you know how deep they can go
how low they can go. They can go really deep. So I think it's a bit. It works as a collection, but it doesn't work individually, because to appreciate it, you have to be able to relate it to, like, the one that's only got 50 meters water resistance or 100 meters. When you separate from the rest of the collection, it's just a dark blue watch or a light blue watch or a kind of medium blue watch. It doesn't relate. So I understand what they're doing. At least they've used the 75th anniversary. They've not chosen some random, this is their 77th and a half anniversary to do this. I am not sure I appreciate the reduction in size of the Planet Ocean. A Planet Ocean should not be 39.5 millimeters. That's just, if you want a dive watch that's 39.5 millimeters, you go for the Seamaster, you go for the Bond watch. You don't go for a Planet Ocean. Planet Ocean is supposed to be a big boy. I don't know what they're doing producing it at 39.5. However you pronounce it, the Prof, the funny looking one, I think I've always thought it's a really cool watch. Again, they've tweaked the size of that, but then they've not tweaked the size of the deepest sea, or no, that's Rolex's one, whatever this is, the one that's got, as you say, the lume on it that lights up when you're in when you're in your bedroom looking to see just how deep you could go at 10,935 meters, the ultra deep. So it's a bit weird. They are very nice, like they all do look lovely individually, but I'm not sure the story holds together quite as well as Omega think it does. I think it holds together as a nice presentation package, and no doubt somebody is going out and buying a box set which has just got all of these. That's the baller move. The baller move is you're rich dude or rich girl, and you just go and you buy the set, and that would be pretty cool. But
obviously some thought's gone into it, though. I mean, if we put this next to the strawberry and MoonSwatch, I mean, this is a huge win in kind of outside the box thinking when compared to those two things. So I think as a presentation, like you said, if somebody was doing a PowerPoint on this, I think it sells. But like you say, when it comes down to individual people buying the watch, although if you go into the boutique and they've got everything side by side and you're presenting the collection to a customer and saying, where do you want to be? How deep do you want to go? I don't know. It could be effective.
Who sang How Deep Is Your Love? The Bee Gees. You want Bee Gee music playing in the background of your Omega boutique as they take you into the dungeon previously reserved for sacrificing to Moonshine Gold, creation of hands or whatever, bobbins, and you take into the dungeon with How Deep Is Your Love playing, and there's this dark corner under like UV light, and it shows all the funny things in these watches, and they ask you, how deep do you want to go? And then they try and flog you a watch on credit. So favourite one of them all? David, do you have a favourite?
Yeah, it's gonna be this 300 for sure. That's the one that I really like. Actually, both the 300 and 300M. I would take either of those very happily, even though they are still a bit thick. I think that they look pretty cool.
Alex, favourite one of this lot?
I'm such a Ploprov fan. I do prefer the kind of OG Ploprov, but it's still, in terms of a standout dive watch and tool watch, I still think it takes a lot of beating.
On the basis that is my favourite watch, but I can't say the name properly, I'm going to choose the GMT World Timer, also because Ari was not here.
Just because you can say that.
For it. So I'll go for that one. It's very rare in the aBlogtoWatch team group chat that actually there's a lot of watch talk. It's not a particularly busy group chat. This stuff goes back and forth, but occasionally there's a release that comes out that actually makes it onto the "Did you see this?" in the group chat. And one such watch as this that appeared this week, it was from Carl F. Bucherer, the Heritage Chronometer Celebration watches. And I think, David, you were chief of the stirrers in posting about this watch and comparing it to several things that, shall we say, are significantly cheaper.
Yes.
What do you know? This is 135th anniversary. I'm sorry, 135 is not an anniversary of anything other than 135 years. It's not an anniversary to be celebrated. But to celebrate Carl F. Bucherer's 135th anniversary, they've released a quartet of limited edition watches inspired by a model from the 1960s. David, give us the background on this and your thoughts on this.
Well, it's an odd release in the sense that these start at $5,900 which is almost exactly 10 times that of the Mido Commander 1959. To be fair, and basically what Carl F. Bucherer is saying is that Bucherer used to sell a watch under its brand some 60 years ago that looked like this. And, that might have been true because if we look back at the 50s and 60s, many brands, even some of the biggest ones today, sold a watch that somebody else had already were already selling at that time. So there were a lot of very similar looking watches from different brands because they all relied on similar suppliers because there was no internet to make them easily comparable. So if somebody had discovered an appealing design that was selling, by the bucket loads, and maybe they had a strong presence, in Europe or maybe in Asia or wherever else. Maybe some other brand that had a strong presence in America would take that design, go to the supplier, say, I like this design, I want this, and I'm going to sell it in America because hopefully it will work, and it worked. And so there are multiple different reasons historically and technically why so many brands ended up making very similar looking watches, same movement, same movement supplier, or same Ebosh at least, same case supplier. All the rest of it was not as vertically integrated, as it is so frequently today. And so Carl F. Bucherer has every right to go back and say, here's a watch we made, and we make it again. It just happens to look like a Mido, because that is on sale today, because Mido used to sell a watch like this back in 1959 as well. Guess what? Well, people will care about the price and the value proposition nevertheless. And of course, the Call of Bucherer at $19,900 is in solid gold, whereas the Mido at $600 will be coated, or $800 will be coated. But still, there's a profound pricing difference for a watch that looks really rather similar. And Call of Bucherer, they say that the movement inside is the CFB 1965.1, and I did some research and I couldn't find anything about it, but it has 25 jewels and 42 hours of power reserves, so you can guess that it's probably based on a Sellita or a Netta base caliber. So you're spending that much for, a basis in that.
Would Carl Bucherer have been better releasing this as like a 65th or 70th or 60th anniversary celebration of the original rather than a 135th anniversary celebration of the brand, which is more appealing?
Yes, but these brands sit down and they say, okay, there are certain markets in which it's incredibly important to have a very old date on the watch. And if you, especially in Asia, I've heard this from many brands. And if you look at these watches, it says Carl Bucherer Lucerne 1888 on the dial, and it says 1888 on the case back in huge letters. And to say, we are 135 years old, that matters to many customers out there. And when I looked at this watch and I looked at the pricing, I like Carl Bucherer. I've been to the manufacturer. I said that they have very keen attention to detail and very high quality control, which is, to my eyes, I was very surprised by, because that was one of the standouts when I was visiting them. And they have some cool pieces like the Heritage Bicompact that was selling really well for them, and that was a very cool looking watch. And now I look at this and I feel like this is basically for the tourists that visit a ski resort somewhere in Switzerland and they stumble upon this store where they sell these watches, and it ticks the boxes because it's expensive, it's 135 years old, it looks kind of cool, and it's made in Switzerland. Boom, okay, $6,000. Or maybe even 20, because it's solid gold. So this is definitely not aimed at the watch connoisseurs among us. It's more of a touristy thing for sure.
Well, Alex, I don't know if you'll get this reference. We'll see how much of Scotland still remains in your current cultural mix. But there's a certain demographic in Glasgow that will not be buying this watch because it has 1888 on the back of it.
I do get that.
You do get that. That's good. I'm glad. And the 14 other Scottish people that listen to this will get it as well. What do we think? Carl F. Bucherer, is that a brand you come across much in Australia?
Not in Australia, but just, I guess, communicating with other watch collectors on the internet. I've always heard great things about their customer service and the way they treat their clients.
Right.
I think it's strange that, the Mido Commander, it's not exactly a tremendously well-known watch, but everyone has just immediately realized that this looks exactly like the Mido Commander.
Well, not everyone. I did.
Well, me too.
Yeah.
I think the look of it, even in the press photographs, it doesn't look very impressive. It looks like a much cheaper watch than it is. It looks like it should be in the same kind of price bracket as the Mido Commander. Yeah, it's just a strange one. I think, again, it speaks for how watch brands keep themselves insulated from what else is actually going on in the watch world, that they would think this is a good idea and that nobody raised a hand in a meeting to say that this bears a striking resemblance to a much, much cheaper watch and doesn't actually add anything much more to the consumer if they're going to buy this versus the Mido one.
Which is weird, because if you look at the Monero Flyback, for example, which is a Carl Bucherer staple, that is very much its own thing. And it's a fantastic looking watch. So it's not like Carl Bucherer didn't know how to design a good looking watch, because they have done that at least a few times over the last number of years. So, why launch this samey kind of watch, like you say, that has a striking resemblance is an old one for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Good stuff. I'll go check it out on aBlogtoWatch.com. Okay, we're going to try something a bit new. There's been a lot of watches released in the last couple of weeks. I don't think the quality's been that great in terms of, I don't think there's been any particular showstoppers elsewhere. There's just been a lot of content. So we thought we would try and do a quick run through, get some pithy one-line reviews in there and play an old game I used to play many moons ago in a former lifetime, Hit Miss Maybe. So I have sent the gentleman notes of every other watch that we have covered on the website. And we're going to quickly name the watch. Then you gentlemen are going to give me a one-line, one-word, short sentence review and tell me, is it a hit, is it a miss, or is it a maybe? So open up your browsers and get ready. Here we go. Okay, the Holgar Blue and Gold Sport Automatic 44mm. David, hit, miss, maybe?
Maybe. I like a watch with quirky designs and design traits, and this one appears to have at least some of that. And I can respect it for that reason. It could be fun to wear.
Alex?
Maybe. Interesting design, looks cheap, but actually is cheap.
For me, I think it's a miss. I think what David and Alex said is all true, but I think that leans it into the miss category for me rather than the hit. Okay, the Forstner Pilot Watch reference F6B-346 reinterprets a military classic, but does it do it successfully? Alex, hit, miss, maybe?
Again, another maybe. Kind of done to death design. If you can't afford an IWC, probably could be a good shout though.
David?
Maybe. I really like the dial design and really like that someone's paying tribute to this kind of layout. I fear that it would not be too comfortable because of this weird folded bracelet and the thickness of the case.
Okay, for me, it's a miss. It's far too small. You can't wear it. It's not a proper watch if it's that size. For goodness sake, get a grip of yourselves, go and buy a bigger watch. Okay, new release, the 3rd generation Monta Ocean King dive watch. Hit, miss, maybe? David?
I think it's a hit. It's nicely proportioned, it looks well made, and it doesn't appear to be too large because it's like 40.7 millimeters. Yeah, I would love to try this. Although it's a bit derivative, I will have to add.
Yeah, miss for me. Quality looks there, but it's just too reminiscent of 100 other different watches that there's no kind of distinct design language there that would actually get me interested in it.
Maybe for me, it does look like it's a quality watch, but doesn't have anything that distinguishes it from the pack of everything else that looks like this. In particular, obviously, the Rolex Submariner. If they just managed to ping something a little bit quirky about it, it would have leaned into the hit. Okay, new release, H. Moser & C Streamliner Flyback Chronograph Automatic Boutique Edition. I can't remember who we asked first last time, but we'll ask David first this time. David, hit, miss, maybe?
I think it's a hit. It looks fantastic, really cool movement. I really like the way that they've used the green and the red gold and the red seconds hand. Nice colorway too. I would wear this.
Alex?
Maybe. The movement's obviously a belter, as we say in Scotland, but I don't know, with each iteration of this watch, it just leaves me a bit more sleepy each time.
Okay, it's a hit. It's clearly a hit. It's a Moser. It's a company. It's run by the coolest guy in the watch industry. Everything's a hit that they produce at Moser. Obviously, it's a hit. Okay, hands-on debut Panerai Submersible S Browbus E a Titanio Palm 01403 watch. Alex, hit, miss, maybe? Did I ask?
Missed on that, I'm afraid. Yeah, well, far too much stuff going on, but kind of, I don't know, good on you guys for trying something that shouldn't have been tried.
David?
As much as I like a watch that has a lot going on, this is a socks in pants watch, and that vibe is killing it for me, so it's a miss.
It's a socks and pants watch? What's that mean?
It's like when you try and exaggerate what you have in your pants, basically. It's like a compensatory thing.
Socks in pants as opposed to socks and pants.
No,
right, okay.
socks in pants, yeah.
I think that should be our new definition. Hit, miss, maybe, or socks and pants.
Yes.
Okay, I was going to say hit just because it's a Panerai, and obviously I'm the Panerista here, but because of that new definition, I'm going to say this is officially a socks and pants watch. Okay, Gerald Genta, happy birthday Mickey Mouse minute repeater for Only Watch 2023. We're not going to cover a lot of Only Watch this week, but we thought we'd cover this one. We'll get into all the details later on in a different show. But what do you think of this one, Alex?
I'm hard to please today. This is another maybe for me. Obviously, again, the movement looks great. Love the case design, but just, I don't know, Mickey Mouse gives me the creeps, so it's just a maybe for me. If they did it with a different dial, it could be a hit.
David?
Yeah, this is a creepy watch. It's a miss.
Yeah, any watch with Mickey Mouse in, don't get it. Sorry, miss for me as well. Hands on Carl, Sushi and Zona Belvedere watch. Hit, miss, maybe. David?
It's a hit. I think it's a fantastic design. Yeah, I like it very much.
Alex?
This is a hit for me as well. It's enough of an interesting design. It looks like there's enough quality there for the money, so yeah, it's a hit.
Yeah, this is cool. Love the placement of the window in the watch. That's epic. Yeah, it just looks dead funky. $6,000, $6,500. Very well finished. Yeah, absolutely. 100% a hit. Zenith Defy Extreme Carbon. What do we think of Zenith and Carbon, Alex?
This is a miss for me. Again, I already said what I think about Carbon watches. It's just another Hublot homage from Zenith, I'm afraid.
Zenith does Hublot. David, hit, miss, maybe?
It is very Hublot-esque, but as a watch, I love it. So, I would wear this. So it's a hit for me. Especially with the 1/100th of a second chronograph, with all the colors going on, with the nicely integrated rubber strap. They have really cool hands, power reserve. It's a high frequency movement. I absolutely love it. It's a shame about the tribute to the lug structure of an Hublot. But hey, it's a sister brand. I'm all for collaborations. Maybe if they would own that would be even cooler. But I like it as it is.
Yeah, hit for me. Completely illegible as a watch, but really, really cool. So on Ariel's last week tool function, it scores a 0, but on the beauty, it's excellent. Love the color variation. The completely pointless 1/100th of a second counter, which you simply can't start. Like human beings are not that accurate for it to be worthy of anything other than complete pointlessness. But it's great, love it. Hit for me. Oris Diver 65 cotton candy watches in stainless steel. David?
I think it's a great looking summer's watch. Yeah, I like it very much. I like the colors. I like the way that they've matched the strap colors. Apparently, I would have to see it in person, but yeah, I like these.
Alex?
This is a big hit for me. I actually prefer this to the bronze one. I would spend more money on this. If Oris could get back to me about a job, can everyone go and message Peter Borkhouse, the Oris MD in Australia, cut fingers on Instagram? And I would definitely pick this as my wear watch if they employed me for sure.
There seems to be a suggestion here that you may be bending your opinion in order to suit your financial status.
No. I've always liked the Oris Diver 65. I liked the bronze one as well, but I wouldn't have bought it just because I don't think bronze is that wearable day to day. But I think this is really, really good looking. I think the colors of the dial actually make the steel pop even more.
Cool. This is a hit, but only for one day, which coordinates with Scottish summer, because this is a summer watch and it's a miss for the rest of the year. So no use in Scotland. The non-official X Solihull's limited edition. Alex, you ever come across a watch dedicated to Solihull?
I'd forgotten Solihull was a place. This is a maybe for me. I mean, white watches are normally a big no-no, but actually the dial and hands look good. And I think as well that brands that you haven't heard of maybe shouldn't be allowed to do limited editions until you know who they are. So yeah, a bit of a strange one.
David?
I absolutely love the crisp white case with the orange dial and the orange strap. That is huge. The blatant copying of a Nautilus case, not so much. I'm not sure I could justify that, but I think it's the rest of the watch falls so far away from a Nautilus that no one could ever say that you're trying to wear a fake or something like that. I absolutely love the white and the orange combination. So you know what? It's a hit for me.
I love this. Absolutely huge hit. The ridiculousness of having Solihull on a dial that is bright yellow and popping and all the rest of it in comparison to Solihull. Sorry to all our Solihull listeners, but if you're in America, think like the center of Detroit or something, or Michigan, or I don't get the relation between the thing it's celebrating and what the watch actually looks like, but it's a cool looking watch. So absolutely a hit from me. And finally, Nevada Grenchen X Analog Shift Chronomaster Big Eye Yachting. The guys at Nevada Grenchen have had a bit of a week with everything that's been going on with the Argon watch, but what do we think about this, David?
I absolutely love it. It's that little dash of blue and yellow on the sub-dial at 3 o'clock is fantastic. It doesn't appear to be very carefully color matched to the orange hand, but they are so far off that I will consider this to be intentional. It's a very weird watch because it's asymmetrical on the dial. It's just a wonky design that works, and I feel like those are so difficult to get right, and I respect them hugely. So yeah, this is an absolute hit for me at $2,000.
Okay, now just before I get Alex to give you that one, I have just had Mr. Ariel Adams pop up on my "Can you let me in the room?" So let's let Ariel in for literally the last 40 seconds of the show. Let's see if he's there. Ariel is connecting. His audio is connecting. Let's see.
Does this mean I have to leave now when he comes in? Is this a tag? He tags me out.
Ariel has just tagged into the show. We're literally in the last 40 seconds of recording. So Ariel, completely blindly, one sentence review, hit miss maybe on the Nevada Grenchen Analog Shift Chronomaster Big Eye Yachting.
Yeah, I thought we already established we don't like dual branding on dials.
He's literally just dialed into the room and already is in full flow.
Yeah.
So does that make it a miss?
I think it's a hit because those people at Analog Shift at, Watches of Switzerland, James Landon, they can push it. So these are people that are going to say, oh, this is so cool, this is so special. So it's a win for Nevada because there's a promoter. There's individual people who will go ahead and push it. So the watch doesn't really need a lot of independent value. It's, it's sort of cool looking. It's got that vintage vibe. It's exactly what sort of Analog Shift wants. And it proves to the customer that they work with that, they have this special relationship with Nevada. So, and again, it's a win from a commercial perspective, but for us as watch lovers, again, I don't think like our main interest is having, store names on the dials. Maybe it's on the back. I like that they're doing unique things, but when I see these sort of like dual branded things with these like multiple logos on the dial, I see it as like an ego party. Like there's too many big personalities in the room, and like somebody needs to leave. Like it's too much.
And Alex, give us your final on this. You'll notice that Ariel's been on to talk about one watch. We've managed to do like 17, and Ariel's taken up the same amount of time for just one.
It's normally me that does that. Vintage-inspired watches always make me want to go and find what the original one was. So I'll give this one a maybe. Mm-hmm. If you can't find the original or afford the original one it's based on, I think this is a good-looking watch and it's good value for the money.
Cool. Well, I was going to say that was the end of the show, but I see, seeing as he's just appeared on the screen and he has just dropped a hands-on review of the Konstantin Chaikin Minions Titanium watch on the site, that will give Ariel the final say as a hit miss maybe on a watch that he has just reviewed. So Konstantin Chaikin Minions Titanium watch. Ariel, one sentence hit miss maybe?
I think Konstantin Chaikin has hit upon something amazing with his now Wristmons collection. This began with a Joker, and I think the popularity of it was somewhat surprising to him, but now looking back on it, he gets it. Affordable complication, looks interesting, high level of art, high level of friendliness, and Wristmons has been this large collection of these face-inspired timepieces, and the creativity is fantastic. This is about 2 years after the original Minions watch, and this one's very, very similar, and there's just some small tweaks and things like that. So what you're seeing is that the popularity of these watches is pushing them to increase production beyond the very small limited productions. These are starting to be, have their own fans and things like that. So from a commercial perspective, I think this makes a lot of sense. These are very fun to wear. They're getting very, very expensive. And I think that's the thing which is difficult for me. I know that Konstantin Chaikin is doing a lot in his business. He's moving a lot of his operations over to Switzerland. So there's a lot of exciting things happening over there. But the price of entry, so to say, into the brand right now is quite high.
I do like the fact that Ariel's just trying to get his room by speaking at twice the speed that he normally speaks in order to get into the same
You're not
space.
getting any less information. You're just getting it at twice the speed.
So if you want to return and slow the playing speed down for this bit, then go ahead and listen to Ariel's review. So I'm taking a hit from Ariel. You'll learn to play this game eventually. David, hit this maybe?
Oh, I absolutely love all of the Rissman series. I wouldn't call all of the designs fantastic. Some of them are a bit of a miss because some of the others are so great and such a standout. Yeah, I'm so happy that these exist. So yeah, a hit for sure.
Great stuff. And Alex?
Another maybe for me. The execution on these is always impressive, but the kind of just the high number of different designs leaves me less and less impressed overall.
Cool. A hit from me. It's a Minions watch. How can it not be a hit? Anyway, there we go. Right, that is definitely the end of the show. Alex, I was going to say tell us what you're doing this week, but presumably it's mainly day drinking
even earlier than normal.
And watching daytime TV.
I didn't get to ask what the result was. It was TikTok, right? This was shared with me. David saw it. I saw it, of course. I'm just curious what the results have been from what I'm guessing is a somewhat popular video or whatever you want to post.
I'd say it's kind of 50-50 between people kind of hailing me as a whistleblower, which I never even considered at the time, and people saying I deserve to be kind of shot at dawn for treason. So I think it's a fair mix.
Can I ask what you got out of it? Obviously, you had a particular desire to share some things like that. That's obviously not cool with the corporate environment you're in. But I'm just curious if you feel like you got out of it what it was that you were trying to accomplish.
I don't know that I would say I had that much forethought to it. I mean, Richard's probably more aware of my kind of story with Swatch Group and getting a first and final warning for the very first episode of the podcast back in 2020, which didn't kind of slow me down in any means about kind of putting my own honest opinion about watches across. It was a bit of a surprise probably for Richard as well that it took so long for them to get round to firing me, but it wasn't part of any kind of great plan. It was more just part of the journey of me kind of going through the Swiss watch industry.
I just wanted to say that from my perspective, I thought it was interesting. I'm not surprised by it. You know, these large European groups, Swatch Group among them, are not companies where outspoken people who say whatever they want are welcome. These are relatively rigid institutions with a small number of official voices and opinions. And if you don't, follow along with those voices and opinions, you're not really welcome there. There is a huge space in this area for opinions. Obviously, what we do at aBlogtoWatch, and the weekly podcast and everything like that is about it. So I think what I'm hearing is that you just realize that your niche is something else. That wasn't good for you. It was a good experience, but don't be discouraged by it. Just recognize that if you're working at one of the brands, you can't necessarily be outspoken. But if your heart is about sharing opinion, things like that, just need to find a different angle. I think for me, the trajectory of approach to the hobby makes a huge difference in terms of whether it's enjoyable or frustrating.
I guess I don't think I'm going to have to worry about thinking twice about what I say if I'm working for any big Swiss watch brands, because they'd have to be. I can't imagine any Swiss watch brand would have anything to do with me right now, which has its own benefits, I guess, because lots of kind of little independent, I guess, watch workshops who aren't fans of the big Swiss watch machine have kind of voiced their support. So that's always nice to hear.
It's sad that you have to choose sides, right? Like, we can't just be in it for watches. There's all these factions and ways of thinking. I mean, when I first got into this, I realized this isn't just watches. This is let's play the UN. It's a very complicated thing. And by definition, you cannot please everyone. You simply can't.
Very true.
Well, we will do our best to try and please an entirely different congregation next week by having, we'll try and get somebody from Swatch Group on or something, maybe Alex.
Petronius,
yeah. I think he's maybe persona non grata right now, but I'm just guessing.
No, I got bumped down to the second, for a minute, I was the most hated man in Swatch Group, and then I got bumped straight away to second place.
It was my fault for not mentioning that there were 4 people who had a bad week at Swatch Group. I only mentioned 3 of them and forgot to mention yourself in that particular week. But it was like the week that Maurice Lacroix launched their colourful cheap quartzy watch, and then
Swatch group.
MoonSwatch came out. MoonSwatch came out on the Thursday, so it was a bit like that. I felt you were Maurice Lacroix to the Swatch group.
Did you get one
So there
up?
you go.
Is there another scandal I don't know about?
No. So Alex's news came out the same week that Omega's news came out that they had been scammed at a particular auction. It was the same. Literally, Alex was the Monday and Omega was like the Tuesday or something, or Swatch was the Tuesday. So yeah, it was a bit of a similar vibe to the previous story. But there we go. Anyway, Alex, we can't find you working for Daniel Wellington anymore. But where can people find you on the internet?
You should go and listen to the Robin the Regulator podcast, which currently is number 3 on Apple Podcasts Bahrain Hobbies subsection, just ahead of the Superlative podcast in 7th place and a Blog to Watch Weekly in 8th place. So just thought I'd get that little ad in.
It's a scandal.
In
It's a scandal. We
Bahrain?
need to work
No, that's
harder.
a big audience out there. Okay, we're gonna move up the ladder.
Yeah.
David, where can people find you on the internet this week?
It's aBlogtoWatch, and also on aBlogtoWatch.com. You can find my latest articles, including the ones that we talked about on this podcast.
Excellent. Ariel, you're in France this week. What are you doing in France?
I will be seeing some brand new Louis Vuitton watches. So a couple months ago, we saw their high-end collection. Now we're going to see their more, standard luxury collection. And here's some updates what's going on there. I will also get to speak about the new Gerald Genta brand, which was sort of just launched. So I'm interested to get some background news on what's going on at La Fabrique du Temps in addition to this Louis Vuitton stuff.
Excellent. And as a wee highlight for what's coming next week, do you watch any good films on the plane on the way across?
I saw Babylon, which was good.
Watch content?
Well, it takes place in... Yeah, there is. I mean, it starts in the 20s in LA and it goes through the 50s. So the costumes
Cool.
are great in there. Obviously, it's a little bit older stuff. I like seeing the big watches. The little ones doesn't get me as excited.
Excellent. Well, tune in again next week and we'll see if there's some A Blog to Watch watches, reviews. Alex, David, Ariel, belatedly, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you again, audience, for joining us as well. See you again soon.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.